Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to Kitchen Table Meta. So we're here with a new series, something brand new that we're starting, and that's going to be KTM Talks, where we take two players or more from the team, from the KTM Pro team, and bring them in and start talking to them about a topic. So today we have a pretty fun topic, and that is with the new one cost blue counter card that got released today. It's stirring people up. People are getting excited. Everybody's saying the sky is falling. It's really bad, and we're here to tell you kind of why we think everything's going to be fine. Calm down. It's going to be pretty good. But first, before we get into it, I'm going to introduce my two amazing guests. On the left, we have Richard Zapp from the KTM Pro team. On the right, we have Zuhair, or aka Young Dusty, on the right. I'm going to let them talk a little bit about themselves and why you should listen to them. By the way, you should not listen to anything Richard says. But we'll start with him anyway and let you kind of listen to him. And Richard, so talk a little bit about yourself.
What's up, everyone? Richard Zapp, Zapdos by some nerds. I've been playing DBS since the gate. One of the more recent additions to KTM's Pro team. I have somehow done well at enough events that I'm ranked equally high as Zuhair, so that's my claim to fame. And no, real talk though, I enjoy a lot about this game. I'm looking forward to making some content of my own. In general, I have some background with game design. I have a lot of motivation to make content. You probably see me through the Facebook group. I'm pretty darn active on there, and yeah.
That's too bad.
Me in a nutshell.
No, great addition to the team. Been a fantastic player. Just I love Richard. He also lives pretty close to me too, so that's awesome. So we talk quite often. Such a great dude. Zuhair, my clone.
Hey guys,
how you doing?
I'm here. I'm also a pro player on KTM's Pro team. I've topped 4 regionals now. Indy, Hartford, Toronto, and Ottawa. So I do have some pretty good experience. I won other various events like the ARG Toronto Easter event. I've came first place in the Philly 1K, and I was the winner of Danny's first ever hyperbolic tournament.
I remember that. I was casting that.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I've done a few things here and there, and I'm looking forward a lot to this new set actually, just because of. There's a lot of new mechanics it looks like that they're trying to introduce, and I'm super excited about that because personally the past format or two have felt a little stale to me.
Sure, a little slow.
So,
I mean slow as far as creation, not slow as far as speed.
Correct,
Speed-wise, it's been very quick, but yeah.
Very correct,
yeah.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into the topic here, what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about this new card. Again, guys, I want to apologize about the quality of the card. This was spoiled through the rule sheet, correct, of the new demo decks. Is that where this came from? So someone took a screenshot of it, so I'm going to pop this up right now. We're going to talk a little bit about it. And that is the Dimension Magic card. It's a 1-cost extra card. It says counter attack. Your leader card is blue. Negate the attack. Then choose up to 2 of your blue energy and switch them to active mode. Permanent Sparking 5. This skill takes effect when you have 5 or more cards in your drop area. You can activate this card's counter skill from your hand by adding a card from your life to your hand instead of paying its energy costs. So I'm gonna flip back to us, guys. First, first of all, we'll talk a little bit about, I guess what everyone's the most concerned about. We'll start there, and then I want to go through and touch a couple other little things, and that is the ability to untap 2 blue energy. People are saying that this is going to be extremely broken. Zapp, what was your first impressions when taking this card out?
So it's been pretty evident, based on some of the previews we've seen on the website, that every color is going to have at least one of these counterattacks, a 1 negate that has the Sparking 5 mechanic to allow you to play it for free at the cost of 1 of your life. I think what's important to remember about that is while unawakened, sure, having a card that picks up a life is useful. It's at the first half of the game, you're already probably running cards that facilitate you awakening. That's probably not going to be that useful in the early game. And in the end game, there's a lot of opportunities where picking up 1 of your own life, even if you're negating a double striker, to go from 4 to 3 or to go from 3 to 2 is going to be very detrimental to you, because if you don't have more negates in the back, you're setting yourself up for lethal. I definitely thought it was solid. Definitely one of the best cards we've seen in a long time. Leader card being blue was a bit of a shock to me, because a lot of the best color exclusive cards right now are in blue. But those are some of my initial impressions.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to remember that the thing about this card that I think is really important is it is restrictive to blue. That is a big restriction, and I know blue has a lot of access to a lot of this untapping mechanics and stuff too, which is very powerful. But it's not going to be one of those cards you're going to see in every deck. And I know blue itself, especially here lately, everyone's really concerned about everyone's playing blue leaders, and this is going to make people continue to play nothing but blue leaders. Zuhair, do you think that this card is going to continue the trend of us as having a top cut full of blue leaders, or do you think that it's not quite that powerful to do that?
Not necessarily. You'd have to wait until you get to see the rest of the set.
Right.
But initially, my thoughts were, I saw it and I was like, cool. It's Whi's Coercion and Senzu Bean kind of in one card. And although, at first glance, it looks super strong, you gotta remember, like Richard said, first of all, you gotta have 5 cards in your drop area for you to even be allowed to take a life to use it. And so that's early game, you won't be using that part of it. Mm-hmm. And then once you do get to that point, your life starts becoming a bit more precious. Once you get to 5, 4, and especially when you're 4 or under, taking a life just to negate is a really big decision on how the rest of the game's going to play out. So it's not as easy to use as it might sound. Mm-hmm. And again, people are saying that it's like a Senzu Bean, but I still think Senzu Bean is probably still better, because in that case, you're adding 5k to your leader for the entire turn, whereas this one is, it's a negate for just a battle, and then you untap 2 your energy. And the restriction on blue, being blue energy only, is also what helps balance the card a bit. Another thing is also, if you look at the leaders, Janemba, the blue leader in set 5, is a rare, and the other colors' rare leaders are their wish leaders. So it's pretty safe to assume blue doesn't get a wish leader.
Ooh.
And if they don't have a wish leader, then blue will need cards like this to survive against the colors that do have wish leaders.
Right. Yeah, it's something we haven't talked a lot about, but the wish mechanic is actually extremely powerful. I know, and just the testing we've all done so far, it's been pretty. They've been pretty powerful decks. Shinron has been very good. So yeah, I agree that the power level is moving up, and again, it's funny to me that the community is preaching they want a more defensive meta, and then when they print defensive cards like this, everyone's saying, well, this is way too powerful. We've already seen people say this card needs banned. We've seen people say that this card shouldn't have been printed. It's a mistake. Me personally, I'm not seeing it. I think it's one of those cards that I think is you need to know it exists. You need to play around as best you can. Like you guys were saying, if your opponent is at 4 life or even 3 life, and you have a couple double strikers out or whatever, just attack with your leader first. If they use this negate against it, then they have to take a life. So they're trading 1 for 1 anyway, and then you can just simply not attack with your other guys and pass. This is going to turn to a more defensive format. It's not going to be like it is now, where if you survive 1 round of negates, if you surround 1 round attacks, you just counterattack and kill the person instantly. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a defensive meta, and it's okay. It's going to go back to being okay to pass. If you look at your opponent has energy open and they use this card, you just pass. You don't let them take advantage of that energy. You just pass and make sure you do something effective with your on play cards, and then continue out your turn. You don't have to just tack all in and go all in on it and attack into this open mana and really try to let them get as much value as they can out of this card. Now, Richard, real quick, I want to flip back over to the card real quick. I want to talk about something about the card here that I want to talk a little bit about, and that's the sparking mechanic. And I want to kind of talk about why I think this mechanic, at first, I hated this mechanic. I thought this mechanic was so stupid, and I was like, man, this is so default. This is such a, what I call cop-out mechanics, right? It's just mechanic that just seems like it doesn't matter. But actually, the more I thought about it, the more I love it. And so this card has permanent sparking 5. Sparking is you have to have that many cards in your drop area, so in this case you have to have 5. You can activate this card's counter skill from your hand by adding a card from your life to your hand instead of paying your injury costs. So switch it back to us. What this card is saying is that you can, if you have 5 cards in your drop, you can add a card from your life, put it in your hand, and you can play this card for free. So if you're completely tapped out of energy, if all your energy's in rested mode, you can play this card for free. So it's one of those cards that's kind of hard to play around because, hey, your opponent's completely out. There's a couple things I want to talk about. A, you can count how many cards are in their drop area. So if they have 5 there, then hey, this is a possibility of them playing this card. B, the thing I love about sparking is it gives us an alternative to Overwhelm. As soon as Overwhelm was released, it was like you had to have Overwhelm in your deck. If you don't have Overwhelm in your deck, you're at a disadvantage. A lot of people have went to Scientist Fu, some to Trunks, whatever. But those are the cards that you always have to have in your deck. So I love Sparking to that thing about Spark. I love that it's a mechanic that we can play around. It's also an alternative to Overwhelm. Now, Richard, in your opinion, do you think that that's the sparking ability is too strong on this card? Do you think they went overboard? Do you think it's fine? Do you think it's going to be able to be played around? Like, how do you feel?
So, in short, I don't think this was the healthiest card to receive sparking. I think one of the unique things about this game, and we look at some of the earlier sets, set 1, set 2, there was a very high risk reward when it came to how much of your energy you used during your turn. So, like, I remember the tricolor Ginyu decks that really populated set 1 and set 2. On turn 5 and 6, they might just be using 4 of their energy to play a 4-drop, but then they kept a yellow untap for Cold Bloodlust and a blue untap for Wizard's Coercion, or full power energy even. And what this card does in and of itself is says that if you want to tap out entirely, if you want to use all 4 of your energy to play a 4-drop, that you can protect yourself safely. Mm-hmm. And on one end, if you are awakened, that play is going to be riskier because you're also taking a life in order to protect yourself. And Dusty, as you said, you can just pass at that point, and in a lot of ways that was a net negative. But where Sparking kind of evens itself out is in that early game. Let's say you did want to tap out on 4. If you're so at 4, 5, 6 life, it's very likely you don't even have the 5 cards in discard to trigger that effect.
Right.
Like I think about a card like Mass Sane, which has a similar requirement of having at least 5 cards in your discard. Unless your deck is absurdly aggressive, it's usually 3, 4, 5 turns before you can even resolve it.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to see, for the first few turns of the game, this card is going to be relatively dead. But when we think about Sensu Bean right now, one of the greatest parts about Sensu Bean is that it's live every single turn of the game.
Absolutely. And it's great offensively and defensively, too. This card is not. It's only, obviously, even playable defensively, which is another, big downside to this card when comparing it to Sensu Bean, which a lot of people are doing. So, guys, we're almost going to finish up here. There's a couple more things I want to cover. One thing being, everyone is, again, crying about how this is going to be the end of this set 5 was supposed to be the set. It was supposed to be the chosen one. So, do you guys, think I'll let Zuhair start, and then Richard, I'll let you chime in as well. But Zuhair, do you think this card is overpowered? Do you think this is the worst design card ever printed in Dragon Ball history? Like, what is your overall thoughts on this card?
Is it really strong? I would say yes. Is it broken? Absolutely not. I think this card, like, if you use it without thinking ahead, it won't work out for you, because there's a lot of things you have to consider. Like, if you run Overwhelm, you don't want to blindly Overwhelm and then forget that for this effect to work, you need 5 guys in the drop area.
Right.
Because I can see a lot of people doing that. Even myself, like, in the beginning, it's something you'd have to get adjusted to. And then there's also, when it comes to deck building, deciding if you want to go with the whole sparking thing, if you want to go with Overwhelm. And another thing I actually like about this is it gives you a negate and an untap together. And something I've noticed as more sets come out is deck building becomes really hard because there's so many good cards, or so many almost staple cards. Like you'll need in a blue deck, you'll need your 4 Whis Coercion, your 4 Sensu Beans, and all that. And this card combines multiple effects to save you deck space, which is something I thought was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, no, absolutely. It was something you said that I think was really smart. You said, about deck building. Do you guys run 4 copies of this card in your deck? I don't think so, right?
I don't think so. I think ultimately it would be a meta call to see how the meta shapes. But like, if you give me this card right now and say how many of these would you run in your deck right now, it would probably not be 4, or definitely not be 4.
Right. I mean, maybe it is 4. Maybe, who knows? But I know with cards like Flute, Sensu Bean, those cards, there's no brainer to run 4 of those cards. That's something that we almost immediately, found out when we started playing with those cards. And I think, I don't think the number of cards you run necessarily determines how good the card is, but to me, if something's really overpowered, needs to be banned, it almost immediately is like, I want 4 of these in my card. Also, guys, something else I want to talk about real quick before we get any further into the video. Remember that we haven't seen all of the set. So for all we know, there could be cards coming out in this in every color. There could be, huge counters to untapping energy that's going to come out in some other color. We have no idea. We have no idea what's coming out. We're just basing the card off of, what we have available now, which currently, that's what we're basing. So I meant to cover that at the beginning of the video. I'm sorry I didn't. But yeah, just please keep that in mind. All right, so Richard, what's your thoughts on this card? OP? I mean, they should ban it immediately. What are you thinking?
So I think the implications of the card in the format are really healthy. I think giving other blue leaders an ability similar to SS3 Goku, in which by expending life early, they can have extra energy on defense, I think could be part of the reason that reintroducing that card in set 5 may be acceptable. I think that this card, I wish the card was more able to be play around. I think that's an issue that a lot of cards in Dragon Ball Super have designed. So, for example, I think if I was testing this card, I think something I would have tried is if your leader is blue and has 10,000 power. Sure. So if it's unawakened or it hasn't wished yet, that way you could punish somebody by trying to punish it by forcing them to awaken. Dimensional magic maybe come offline.
Right, which we talked about that before the video. I love that idea. Thing I love most about that idea is that I think right now they really need to push a format where we want to stay unawakened as long as possible. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that right now everyone's killing themselves as fast as possible to awaken. And while that's neat and it's great to have that in the format, it does it seems a little how do I say? It seems a little like unthematic to me. It's like I'm Goku, I'm fighting Vegeta. Let me punch myself in the face, then I awaken. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I would love cards that rewarded you for staying awake. Unawakened for as long as possible. I think this card would have absolutely done that if it was worded that way. I think that's a brilliant suggestion. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, Richard.
No worries. But in short, does this make me want to play a blue leader single-handedly? It does. It really does. Do I think I play 4 copies? No, I probably play 2 or 3. Sure. But if I am picking between a world in which I'm eating Bardock Goten to the face all day on turn 2, or I'm getting mad because my opponent could defend themselves on turn 5, I'm just thankful we got to a turn 5 in the first place.
Right. Absolutely. And the funny thing, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, you just do such a good job with your thing. I always want to comment on it. But something to remember is that we are kind of moving into this, like what I call combo format with the wish leaders, right? Like a lot of the wish leaders, they don't really want to attack you at the beginning, right? They're just playing out their Bulmas or playing out their Dragon Balls. They're trying to search their deck, and they're doing. And in that scenario, in that environment, this card isn't broken by any means, right? They're never attacking you, and when they do attack you, they're awakened, they have wish, they have all this stuff going on, and so they can easily play around this card. This card can also get bad ring lasered. I don't know, people haven't really talked about that, but there is a counter to this card. It's just like if you're really worried about this card, you can just put bad ring lasers in your sideboard. It's not that hard to splash anymore. We have a million yellow cards. But I'm sorry, Richard, continue. I apologize.
But no, and then I think the other weakness of this card that people aren't considering is that if you're low on resources, it is not very impactful. Like I remember playing in an SS3 meta, a lot of what you would do is you would try to attack with 15k attackers and try to attack with 25k attackers because you wanted to put your opponent in a situation where they had to combo a 110 and then an additional card on top of it in order to generate more advantage. And if, let's say, they resolve a dimensional magic and all they have are 110s in your hand and you swing 15k, they're now over comboing. If they have to combo their 110 unbreakable Super Saiyan Goku. Now it's 25 on your 15, and sure, they drew the card off of it, but they didn't get as much value out of that card as they could have. And again, if they're short on hand, who cares if you're untapping 2? If they don't have any cards to do with it, or if every card in their hand is a 0/5, those untaps are also pretty irrelevant.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be a very strong card. It does really incentivize me to use a blue leader. But if I had to pick between it being a necessary evil or something a card I didn't wish exists, I would call it a necessary evil. But yeah. No, I think it's on the overpowered end of healthy. But no, it's a welcome addition. I'm looking forward to seeing how it affects the format.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my final thoughts about the card is a couple things. I'm gonna go through them real quick here. Is number one, I wish we had more cards like this. I think energy untap mechanics are amazing. I wish that it wasn't a blue only mechanic. I wish that they would have give that to more things. I love comboing and trying to defend myself on my opponent's turn. To me, that's the funnest thing about this game. It's why I love the pan leader. It's just I love that defensive play style, and I hate that we have to run sensu beans. We have to run these certain things to untap energy, where SS3 gets to do it all the time. I think that they should see from that mechanic the fact that SS3 has been so powerful. And me, it's solely because of the untap mechanic, and they should spread that out, spread the love a little bit. Let's give it out to some green, let's give it to red, let's give it some more thing. Let everybody play with it, so the game isn't tap out, you die, or play way off curve to survive. That's not fun, I don't think. And I think the more defensive formats are always more fun. I think cards like this are great because it spreads that love around. It's still in blue, which is my only criticism with the card, but it also helps balance the card a little bit, which is fine. Next up, it does have counters. We talked a little bit about that. You have bad ring laser. You also have the ability just to pass, guys. Remember, if you attack with your leader and your opponent uses this card, takes a life and hits themselves and untaps 2, just pass, or play some cards that draw you cards or whatever. Set up your board, set up some blockers, and just pass. They blew their card. They took a damage for it. I mean, you don't have. In my opinion, the format's going to slow down to a point where it's not like I have 3 turns to kill you or I'm dead. It's not going to happen like that. So just slow it down. Once they play this card, just take it as a win and move on. You don't have to go all in, enough to flip out about it. And the last thing I want to talk about this card, guys, is remember that the sparking mechanic, while everyone's talking about how this card is going to be free, like Zuhair mentioned, like Richard mentioned, it's going to be hard to do it, right? It's not going to be one of those things where you just keep 5 cards in your drop area the whole time. If you do, then you're sacrificing overwhelm cards, and some of those cards are extremely powerful, especially in a slower format where we have scientist foos and things like that give you card advantage. So you're sacrificing card advantage in order to untap 2 energy, which is great. Also, I think this card, what it was designed for, where I think it'll fall into place, is in the mono blue control decks with Bergamago and Vegito. That seems amazing if you attack in the Bergamago and then you're just like untap 2 plus he gets 5k. Now I can use sensu beans, this other stuff. That seems awesome. That seems where it's going to be in place. I don't see this being a card that's going to be played in everything. And to me, if it strengthens a slower aggressive or a slower defensive style, I'm on board. I'm all for it. So, all right, Zuhair, Richard, any closing arguments before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered a good amount of stuff about this card.
I would just challenge viewers to A, wait until they see the whole set to make preemptive judgments. B, I would encourage them, even if they do have a negative opinion on it, try to resist the urge to be a savage. Like I could only imagine being the Dragon Ball Super designer that run Facebook today. That whoever.
Well, I feel like that happened when they released the Krona card. Like, I feel like they put it in their design thing. They're like, we're going to blow their minds on this card. They're going to be so happy. They're like, check out Krona. And it was just like, die. Like, just destroy. Like, I know they were like, oh my God, like, what happened? So,
like, don't get me wrong, I'm all for constructive criticism. But yeah, that's somebody that makes it, their salary is designing is designing that. Just tell them that they wasted their work. Give them more credit for that. I still have faith. Wait till we see the full set to make a judgment. And before saying that it's broken, which means there's nothing you can do about it, challenge yourself to think, well, how can I minimize the impact of this card? What kind of things can I do to minimize the impact?
Right, absolutely. Right, absolutely. And that is true. Bad ring lasers, playing around the five in the drop, or pass. Just pass. Those are some things that just immediately come to mind. And I haven't even played with the card yet. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be very obvious when you see this card coming, and just play around it the best you can. I mean, it's okay if you get blown out of the card the first couple of times you play test. I think that's what happens. I think people sit down, they play test with these type of cards, they get blown out, and they're like, this card's broken. God! It's like, okay, play 5 more games and see if it's still broken, because I promise it probably isn't going to be, right? Once you start getting that idea, once you get back into the rhythm of like a defensive format, you're going to see that this card is very good, but nowhere near meta define or broken, or like meta warping, or like it's like crush the whole game. I don't think we're going to see top 16 be 16 blue decks running this card. I cannot imagine that world where that exists. Zuhair, last comment. I'm gonna let you close it out on us.
The card's not broken. Defensive cards cannot be broken.
All right, see you next time.
They can be good, but you're not gonna end the game with a negate.
Right.
Boom.
It's also still very weak to Android, so any hand destruction. Yeah. If you're playing a defensive game like this and you just get your hand taken to 3, I mean, remember that still exists, right? So just there's so many counters, and I know I'm talking a lot about it. I mean, another one comes to mind. Okay, your opponent's setting at 1 energy or no energy. Just chain Zeno them and make them go to 5 cards ahead. There's a chance you just took the gate out of their hand. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. Just think of different ways you can do it. Think of different ways you play around this. If the format is slower, it opens up counterplay. You know what I mean? Now we don't have that much counterplay. If you mess up, you don't get the right card, you just die the next turn. Yeah, you just lose, right? That happens. But
or be like Danny, bait them into using as many of these as you can, and then change Zeno when they're at low life totals.
Right, exactly. I mean, if they're taking 1 life for this card, I feel like I'm okay with it. I feel like I won't mind that at all. You know, untap 4 energy. I don't care if you're taking a life. That's the goal of the game. You know what I mean? So yeah, very cool. Yep. All right, guys. Thank you both so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Like I said, this is going to be something we're going to do every week, and I'm going to try to pull a couple of these nerds in here every week and talk about something that you guys want to talk about. If you have any suggestions on something that you want to see us talk about, please put it in the comment section below. We'll pop your name up. We'll pop the comment up. We'll give you credit for giving us the idea, and we'll talk about it for you guys each week. We love you guys so much. Thank you so much for the love and support you give. Not only me, but these guys as well. You guys have been amazing, giving these guys so much support. They work very hard, and it's an honor to have them on the show, and an even bigger honor to have them wear my logo on their shirts. These guys are amazing. Guys, we love you so much, and we'll see you next time.